Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Coding 101 is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
Coding 101 is brought to you by Braintree. Even the best mobile app won't work without the right payments API. That's where the Braintree V.0 SDK comes in. One amazingly simple integration gives you every way to pay. Try out the sandbox and see for yourself at BraintreePayments.com/coding. And by Lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/C101. That's LYNDA.com/C101. On this episode of Coding 101, we've got the best of the Microsoft MVPs. Hello and welcome to Coding 101. It's the Twitch show where we let you into the wonderful world of the Code Monkey and the Code Warrior. I'm Father Robert Balacer, the digital Jesuit. And right about now is the time where I would normally introduce my super special King Kamehameha, ultimate mega nerd geeky guy. I know that's a horrible title. Mr. Lou Maresca, the lead software developer at Microsoft. But I'm not going to do that this episode because Lou's brought a couple of friends. Lou, what's all this?
Yeah, today we welcome some of the Microsoft MVPs. We got a lot of people in the room here. We have Microsoft.NET MVPs. We have C#. We have PowerShell. We have a whole bunch of people here today.
Now, I should say that these are not just some Microsoft MVPs. These were specially selected. These are the best, the creme of the crop of the Microsoft MVPs. Starting, of course, with some people you already know. You know Sarah Dukevich, who has been our PowerShell expert. There she is. Nice. Also, Adam Bertram. You saw him in the last episode of Coding 101. He was our Code Warrior. But we're also joined by some new faces. Who's Jeremy Clark?
That's me.
That's Jeremy, a .NET MVP. We've got June Blender. June's, I think, is on your side, right, Lou?
Yep, she's over here.
You got to sneak it. There we go. June Blender, a PowerShell MVP. Stephen Owen, who is also PowerShell MVP, and a man whose real name is Jeff Wouters, but I'm going to call him Wooters because Woot sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us. We wanted to do this. We wanted to bring you into an event. This is a special event. Now, would one of you can select, this is sort of like the island, you get to select democratically. One of you explain what is this MVP gathering? Why have this thing at Redmond?
So the MVP gathering, the way I see it, is a meeting of the minds. We have people from various backgrounds, IT pros, consumer and developer backgrounds, all coming together, descending upon Microsoft's main campus here in Redmond, Washington. And we are meeting with other MVPs. We're meeting with our product groups. We're meeting with the people who create the things that we use, the tools that we use. We're meeting with language creators. We're working with the C# people, the PowerShell people, the F# people, the VB people. All the Microsoft technologies on the developer and the IT pro side, and some of the consumer guys, are here to give back feedback that we've taken in from the community, from our various community engagements. Whether we're speaking at conferences, or writing books, or posting in forums, whatever we're doing, our community contributions, we're here now in person to give them feedback. We're here to say, this is what's working, and this is what isn't working, and this is how we can improve upon it.
Well, that's a picturesque answer. That's what you want to hear from people who understand what the event is. But now I'm going to bring in, I want to bring in the Woot himself, Mr. Jeff Wouters. That's a nice way to describe, a poetic way to describe an MVP gathering. But I mean, it really is a huge party, isn't it?
What was the question?
Well, I mean, the MVP gathering it's a party, isn't it? This is a reward for being people who are so involved in the Microsoft community, no matter what product line it is, that you want to bring them together. And as Sarah mentioned, to sort of break down silos and have you talk between product lines.
Yeah. Well, we make it a party to begin with. But basically, the product teams, they really love what they're making, and we love what they make. So, yeah, put those two together, and it's fun, always. Most of the product teams really provide,
Yeah.
well, we provide them feedback, and most of the product teams accept it, whether they like it or not.
I'm not. I will tease that out a little bit. I think we need to go back into that. Lou, we will talk to the rest of your MVPs because you have gathered them under the banner of the Lunas. But let's go ahead and give them a little bit of a story that made the rounds this morning. It came from a company by the name of 9Hertz. Now, they released some information that's been turned into an infographic that explains what goes into the creation of a mobile app. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who think mobile apps are actually pretty simple. We've created one on Coding 101. It's a basic interface on a basic device on a small screen. But the information that they released seems to show us that the development of an app is actually way more expensive and complicated than we think. Now, here's some of my favorites. In their development process, they find that it takes about 18 weeks to develop and publish a native mobile app. Now, that includes 10 weeks to build out the back-end infrastructure for that mobile app and about 8 weeks to build the front end. Now, part of that is why APIs are so nice. If you don't have to completely build out your entire back-end, then you save a lot of time, which is why we see a lot of apps built on Twitter or Instagram, because if they handle the back end for you, well, you've cut a lot of time off your development process. Lou, let me ask you. I know that a lot of the MVPs there, they're PowerShell MVPs. You've got a .NET MVP, but they all end up supporting a lot of that back end process. Do your MVPs see a lot of that back end?
You guys see a lot of back end? No, they don't.
No.
I do.
Well, tell us. I mean, so when you're supporting the back end for a new app, typically what kind of workload do you see?
So, I mean, most of the back end today is a lot of microservices. They're small cloud services that kind of handle different types of traffic. So, for instance, if I had an SDK that's part of my app, or if I had a front end kind of API that I called to get kind of HTML assets, it's basically breaking down different microservices, and so they all kind of communicate to each other, and they need to be able to scale based off of the amount of traffic that's coming through. So again, these types of designs and implementations need to be able to handle the amount of users you're going to have on your site. So I mean, that's kind of the key, or on your app even. So, and you got to remember, individual mobile devices, some of them have fast internet speeds, and some have slow internet speeds. So you have to be able to kind of handle that situation when it comes to your app.
Right. Now, this might be something we could throw to your MVPs. Hopefully, one or two of them will have a couple of words they'd like to say about the app development process. It actually very closely mirrors the development process of pretty much any project. Hertz is saying that they like to have a clear goal. So that stops mission creep. They know exactly what they want the app to do, and every decision after that point has to fit into that goal. But then they support that with a wireframe. It's their prototype. It's the tree that actually comes down from that first decision of what they ultimately want their app to do, which will then guide every decision they make along that development process. Do we see a lot of that going on in the PowerShell world, in IT automation, or in the .NET world?
Well, I would say that, yeah, there is a lot of goals and that kind of thing. But at the same time, we like to change with the business. So sometimes business processes change, and we want to make sure that our applications can change with them. So that's one of the things that I always keep in mind when I'm building stuff. So yeah, we do have a definite goal, a vision in mind, but we have to be flexible for when things don't go quite the way that we plan them.
Now, when things happen not quite the way that you plan them, what's your default?
Well, users don't always react the way that you expect them to. And, you find people that are pushing buttons that you don't expect them to push. And so it's like, well, maybe we need to rearrange this process to make it a little bit easier for them. So, I mean, in my experience, I've run into that quite a bit.
Well, let's talk about user experience. Who's the UX UI expert in the room? Come on, don't be shy.
I don't think anyone wants to.
Oh, see, Sarah's taking it. Sarah, come up here. Come up here. The Hertz story did talk about how the front end, the vast majority of the front end, is fine-tuning the UX, the user experience, or the user interface, looking at what you did, how it's received, and then refining it. Do you do a lot of the same for PowerShell? Because I know PowerShell is not as much of a consumer-oriented technology. It is far more IT and enterprise-oriented. but you have to do a lot of the same processes, right? What's your feedback loop when you look at your UX?
Okay. So Lou's putting it over here to me. So in terms of UX, we don't see it so much on the PowerShell side yet. They have a different way of approaching solutions to problems. But on the developer side, in terms of user experience, we're using wireframes. We're using what they call low fidelity and high fidelity mockups. So like hand-drawn wireframes or something that you draw out the process, the flow, but you don't make it look so close to real that your end person, your end client says, oh, you've got the look down. It can be done tomorrow, right? You do the loose drawings of, okay, this is the flow. This is how we want it to look. And then from there, after that, you'll add design. So we do the low fidelity mockups first, the hand-drawn kind of stuff. And then once we're at a point in the process where they understand and we understand where they want to go, then we'll do the higher fidelity markups where you've got closer to the design and you can click on buttons and fill in things and get a feel for how the interactions work. But you have to make sure you have that first base understanding in the low fidelities so that you and the client are both understanding each other at the same time.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, Sarah. Hey, Lou, did you go over some of the Hertz information about the cost of the app? I think they actually mentioned how much it costs to develop even a simple app.
Kind of crazy. Yeah, so I think one of the crazy things is, being able to support the front end, the back end, and then be able to scale the app and do the design and so on. It's going to, and be able to test and deploy the app, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So I think that's kind of the key is, and they basically break it down based off of the type of app, right? So I think they were talking about and where you're actually going to develop it at. So I think in North America, they were saying the price range is from $10 to $250 an hour.
Oh,
so
geez.
it can actually, what's that?
Yeah, I think that means like for the simplest app, you're talking between 3 and 8,000 K. I mean, that's getting something on the screen.
Right. Yeah, and I think so. Again, it ranges. I mean, you can kind of see that if you're developing in India, it's from $10 to $77 an hour, average price $30. So I think that it's kind of the key is depending on where you want to choose the app and where you want the app to be built, it will all depend on how much you're going to probably charge or pay for. So I think that that's kind of the key, and also depending on how big the app is going to be, what platform it's going to be on, and how complex the app is going to be, whether it has a server, client server component kind of thing.
Well, let me throw that back into your MVPs because right now app development is sexy. I mean, people see money in app development. In fact, there's a part of that infographic that talks about what could be the potential payoff. I mean, yeah, you're looking between 3K and 250K to develop an app based on how complicated you need it to be, or if you want it to be a business app, a gaming app. But they also point out that in 2011, apps pulled in, what was it, $8.32 billion. In 2014, that jumped to $35 billion. In 2015, $45.37 billion. And they estimate by 2016, it's going to be $58.21 billion. So that is a ridiculously profitable pie, especially if you're one of the few who gets an app that really, really takes off. Now, I know we've already mentioned that most of the MVPs in the room, they don't develop apps. They may develop the back ends that support apps. But let me ask anyone in the room, you can step up to the mic for this one. When you look at the sexiness of your work, I mean, it is absolutely vital. We don't have our IT infrastructure without people who are willing to get in there and automate and get in there and give us the flows that we need. But looking at what you do and what you see app developers do, is there a choice? I mean, how do you decide to go with something that's more back-end, back room rather than sexy, big gamble? Who wants it?
I got it. Hey, so I'm Stephen Owen. So one of the things we say at my company, and this is something that it took me a while to understand, is you got to make it work before you make it look pretty. And so, yeah, when you're going to show something to an end customer that's going to be the UI they live with every day, that first impression really does matter. But if you spend forever polishing the UI and the buttons don't work, then you're going to have a problem when you're 3 weeks in and they say, well, what did you do? Well, look at these gradients, how beautiful they are. The customer doesn't really care so much about that.
Well, okay, so, and yeah, that's typically would be my default. I don't care how pretty it is. If the thing doesn't work, it doesn't work. Or I don't care if the UI is ugly and uses all black and white, if it gives me exactly the information that I need. But there's a fine line between becoming a UI programmer and becoming a back-end programmer. And most of you, I think, would count yourself more in the back-end side. Let me bring someone who hasn't spoken at all. June, what does your daily experience typically account for?
Well, I'm a technology evangelist and I write help. So a lot of what I do is describe, in the simplest terms that I can, some things that in PowerShell that seem complicated.
I got it. Okay, I understand. I'm just kind of fascinated by everyone who's there. As you keep talking and as Lou keeps passing me notes over our doc system, I'm thinking we probably should spend a lot of time speaking about you. Now, we know about Adam, we know about Sarah, but I want to get to know some of you a bit more. Who wants to go first? Just tell me a little bit about who you are, what your specialty is, and where you work on the day-to-day. Uh-oh.
So what do you want to know?
Well, I know that you're a PowerShell MVP. What do you do? I mean, what's your specialty? What gets you excited? And who do you work for?
I've got my own company, Mythos IT, and I basically automate myself out of a job. So far, every single time there's a new customer that comes along, so I keep having work. But getting a little bit back about the application development, I used to be at a customer that had an application for the oil and gas industry. And apparently they had 3 Hyper-V hosts on-premise. They actually got a call from the sales guy in Qatar telling them, please don't generate any builds right now, we're giving a demo. So that meant that generating a build had such a performance impact that the demo was terrible. And the customer wasn't happy, they wouldn't buy the product. So that was a reason to move to a cloud provider. And also, my job was to provide a backend infrastructure. And my job was to create an infrastructure scaled for performance or scaled for file storage, etc. I didn't care about the app. I'm an IT infra guy and I'm building an optimized infrastructure and the app needs to comply with that. That's the wrong way of thinking. So that's the moment when we put me and some developers in one room and we started talking to each other. It may sound strange, but then also we found out that in this specific scenario, event sourcing for the application became important. And a query from a basic, you click on a button that provides a query, took 300 seconds. With event sourcing, it became 3 seconds. They used web forms. I don't know if they...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, apparently web forms can be used pretty well, but the app used quite a lot. And so did they. So they started moving to Node.js and React for the web front end, but that's also, but mainly because we started talking to each other. IT infra guys, the architect guys, the testers, etc. And then it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. Well, that's Jeff Wouters. Now,
It sounds like DevOps.
What's the name of your company again?
My company is Mythos, and the customer I can't mention. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine, Mythos. But I did like your tagline. You're trying to automate yourself out of a job. Next, I'd like to hear from Adam. We haven't heard much from Adam. Adam, can you wave to us? Say hello. Now, get ready, because I'm going to ask you the same thing. I want to know who you are. Who would you describe yourself as? What's your specialty? What's your passion? And then what brings you to the MVP Gala? But before we do that, let's take a break. We got to take a break to thank the first sponsor of this episode of Coding 101. Let me ask you, if you are an app developer, at some point you're going to need to figure out a way to monetize it. You're going to need to figure out a way to make financial transactions. Now, you could do it the old way. The old way was that you would stand up your own server, you'd get some space in a colo. You'd probably have to make an agreement with an ISP to make sure you've got secure transactions over to your financial processor, and then you would also have to hire someone to make sure that it stays up and it's maintained so that, well, you don't have to worry about losing information. You could do all that, or you could just go with Braintree. Now, Braintree has the V.0 SDK. It is the fastest way to add a payments option to your mobile app. Now, imagine this. Developers around the world have embraced the Braintree V.0 SDK as that easiest way because it's just 10 lines of in-app code. Now, no matter what payment type you want to accept, Braintree accepts it. Apple Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, even Bitcoin. If something new pops up, Braintree will support that too. It's the same payment solution used by Uber, Airbnb, and GitHub, so you know it's going to scale. Now, they give you simple, secure payments. They use tokens so that you never have to worry about losing customer information. You can't lose what you don't have. They understand that since they are your payments processor, that their service, their security becomes your service, your security, and they take that job very, very seriously. If you don't have time, you can give them a call and they'll guide you through it. In fact, they can have someone sit there with you to make sure the integration goes smoothly. And they even have a sandbox so you can try the interface, see how it actually works, how quickly it responds before it goes into production. Braintree supports iOS, Android, and JavaScript clients. The SDK comes in 7 different languages from .NET, Node.js, Java, Perl, PHP, Python, and Ruby. And it's elegant, clear code with documentation. Imagine that. Documentation so you don't always have to be guessing what a certain function or a caller or method does. It's just spelled out. Now, we want you to try Braintree. And if you're serious about your mobile app, then you should want yourself to try Braintree too. Braintree gives you an easy way to accept multiple payment types all with one integration. Integrating it into your app is as easy as inserting 10 lines of code. Try out the sandbox and see it for yourself now at BraintreePayments.com/coding. That's BraintreePayments.com/coding. And we thank Braintree for their support of Coding 101. We're back with the best of the Microsoft MVPs. We're speaking with Adam Bertram. Adam.
Yes, sir.
What brings you to the party?
Well, I guess I was crazy enough to get involved in a chat room at one time, and before you know it, I'm now at the MVP Summit. I've been contributing a lot to the community for a long time, and finally Microsoft decided that I needed to be awarded the MVP, and here I am with all of my closest friends.
Actually, I want to ask you about that.
Stop leeching.
Because we've talked to Sarah and we've talked to Adam. Jeff. Yes, Adam about that. Wait, what did I just call you Adam Bertram? Yes, I did, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm losing track. There's too many MVPs in one room. There's too much awesomeness. But when they talked about their path into the MVP, they spoke mainly of they were just giving a lot. They were helping people. They weren't promoting products, but they were showing off projects that use particular services that people found interesting. Is that pretty much the same way that you got there?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. We are known to provide valuable feedback to Microsoft, and we're kind of the conduit between the community and Microsoft itself. So, Microsoft can go out and develop an army and say disperse and get feedback from the community and go through focus groups and things like that. But we as MVPs, we come from the community ourselves. We provide. We're honest. We give it if it's we're brutal for the most part. If we think that the product is bad or this needs to be fixed, we'll let Microsoft know. That's what I think that we're really valued on. As in, we're independent. We're not going to say this product is great versus this one. To us, we're just independent community members and that have just decided to speak up and share our knowledge with the community and also provide that feedback to Microsoft.
The big question, does the MVP Summit have free beer?
Free beer?
Free beer is good.
Yes.
Does the MVP program have free beer?
What?
Free food? Don't they have free food?
Sometimes, yeah. There's
it's a party.
Parties and free food.
It's got to have a summit. Let's go to the other side of the table. Let's talk to June. June, what brings you to the MVP Summit? So again, we know that you were a PowerShell MVP. How did you get on Microsoft's radar? If someone were to come up to you and say, "Hey, you know what? I see you're an MVP. I've always wanted to be an MVP. What do I have to do to get into the program?"
Well, my route was quite long. So I worked for Microsoft for 17 years. So that was my route to being an MVP. I was actually on the PowerShell team. The team.
You're an insider.
Yeah, I started that way. Then I became an outsider and came back in the other door.
Got it. And Stephen Owen, did you work for Microsoft?
No, I did not work for Microsoft.
Starting to look like a
No.
conspiracy, right?
No, it is a conspiracy. No, I was a sysadmin who basically made a living kind of copying and pasting other people's code snippets online and not really understanding what I was doing. And I was a leech, and it didn't really backfire too badly most of the time. And then I decided I should probably man up and start contributing. And so when I solved a cool problem, I would write it up on my blog or talk at a users group, that kind of thing. And after a while, I guess somebody noticed, and here I am.
It's funny that you bring up being a leech, because that's something that Adam brought up last week, which is
That's right.
You feel like a leech. The first couple of months, years, whatever it's going to be, you're taking code that someone else wrote, maybe you tweak it a little bit, and you use it, and it works. And it's hard to feel as if, wow, that I'm contributing anything, because I'm really borrowing from other people. But that's how it works, right? I mean, let's ask Jeremy. Jeremy, what was your path to Microsoft MVP status?
So I love making developers better. So I basically will speak wherever people will sit down and listen. So I teach people technology. I started at user groups and local code camps, and I'm moving up to regional and professional conferences now. And, again, I just love watching people learn, and I'm trying to make that as easy as possible for them. And again, someone noticed that, hey, I'm contributing to the community, and they gave me this great recognition.
His name is Jeremy Bites. You can't beat that.
Well,
Jeremy
I don't know.
Bites.
Woot,
That's where you
Woot comes
find me
pretty
online.
close. Lou, now I know that you have an involvement with the MVP program, but you're not a Microsoft. I mean, you can't be a Microsoft MVP, right? You're a Microsoft employee.
Nope, I can't. Unfortunately, no.
But if you were to leave Microsoft, then you would have the inside track, because that's, we know that.
Good,
that's how
yeah. Hey, you like this one over here, you mean?
A little more work than
All right, we do have a question, a long-standing question from the audience. This is not just from this episode. This has been from pretty much every wildcard episode that we've ever done with Coding 101, and that is an open question. Anyone can take this. If there's someone out there who is feeling like a leech, is just getting into this, let's say they're trying to develop their PowerShell skills, do you have advice on when they might be ready to go freelance, when they might be ready to gig? Because I know making that transition for a lot of people is incredibly scary, from doing projects on your own with very minimal exposure to finally saying, no, I am good enough to be paid a decent salary for my skills. Do any of you have an experience of that time you made that transition?
Actually, I had that same problem exactly. So when I started before I started as a freelancer, I was employed. I had a lot of fun, and then I decided I want to become a freelancer. But I noticed that I was lacking certain knowledge, so certain experience. So I found a new job, employed, and I told the director, I want to be employed here, but I want to learn this, and this, and the moment I do, I'm gone.
And that worked.
And he accepted, and he was like, oh no, that will take you at least 2 years. And 8 months later, I left. So, yeah, for me, it was just a lot of reflection. Looking at your so-called maybe competitors, looking in the market, is the market ready for you? Look at the amount of jobs. Are there jobs in your focus area? Do they want you? Have a network, or maybe with learning companies, brokers. But in the end, you can prepare as much as you want to. In the end, it comes down to just making the step.
Oh, well, that's a unique tact. So you went into employment saying, I want to work for you, and I want to learn these things, which will help you. That's what you want. But once I learn them, I'm gone. Does anybody else have an experience like that? Or is there another way to come into the gigging economy?
So I'm an English major by education. And I was always a hobby programmer, and I was interested in it. And I was trying to figure out how to get my foot in the door. And unfortunately, back in the day, there weren't like really good boot camp programs that I could go through. So I was kind of looking at some of the technical schools, which didn't quite feel right to me. And I ended up kind of getting in through the back door. So I worked at a corporate job for many years, and I ended up on the user side of a project. And during that process, the developer manager noticed that I was asking the right kinds of questions, and I had the right kind of mentality. and I got offered a junior position. She's like, "Do you want to come over?" And I'm like, "Yes, totally, I do." And it was a great opportunity. And unfortunately, it was kind of unique because I ended up on a team that was just really awesome. And we were all about building each other up. And so I was able to learn very quickly. And I just wish that everybody could have that same kind of experience. And I know, unfortunately, it's much rarer in an industry than we want it to be.
I love it. I love it. So we've got so Jeff Wouters. His experience was more. He just did it. He got the confidence to go in and say, "This is what I can give you. This is what I want to learn. I want to work here." Yours is more, okay, you backdoored it a little bit. You were always a programmer. Obviously, you started your professional career thinking you were going to do something else, but you've come into this. I want to talk to June now, because June, she did confess that she worked for Microsoft for how long, June? How many years was that? 17 years?
17 years.
17 years. So obviously, you didn't have to know whether or not you were able to work in the freelance field. You knew you had those skills.
Yeah, I'm still not a freelancer.
You're
So I work for, is that okay to say? Yeah, I work for Sapient Technologies in Napa, California, and we build PowerShell tools. So I was able to jump from the PowerShell team. I worked on Azure Active Directory. I worked on Azure PowerShell. And I got to know people like the other MVPs at conferences and online, answering questions, getting their feedback. And on the PowerShell team, as the help writer, I was the person who often interacted with the MVPs and brought their ideas into the help topics and into the product. So it was really easy for me to transition and go outside and do the same thing, but from the outside rather than the inside. But I still interact with the PowerShell team. I get early previews of the product. I test them to death. I give them feedback. Sometimes feedback that they might not get because of my unique perspective. And then I also do training and user group demonstrations and bring that feedback both back to my company and into our tools and back to the PowerShell team.
Nice. Okay. Well, we got to get Steven here. So, Steven, are you a freelancer?
No, I'm not a freelancer. But you were saying earlier, how does someone know when they're ready to go out there and do it? And to me, one of the greatest kind of conduits to knowing that you're good enough is trying to help others. You know, like when you go to teach someone else, at least for me, I get this mental list of what questions could they possibly ask me, and I go through and I know like this answer and this answer, and by the time I'm done, I've become really good at something without realizing it. And then, you know, they might throw you a question that kind of, you know, knocks you off kilter. Maybe you didn't see it coming, but anytime I've gone out and tried to help someone else, whether it be like on the forums or Stack Overflow or contributing on a Git project, I get a lot out of it. So, you know, it's fun, and I'd say that's definitely something people should do.
I love the fact that you said how they try to knock you a little bit off kilter. This goes to everyone in the room, including you, Lou. What's the best question a recruiter, an interviewer has ever asked you during one of these interviews, trying to find out if you actually know what you're talking about?
Do you want to know the best or the most stupid one?
And now you got two answers you have to give us. See, that you're making more work for yourself.
The best one, which are the best commandlets in PowerShell?
Okay, good. Yeah, that's legit.
And the most stupid one, and I will never ever forget this. Yeah, you're good in PowerShell. We have a director who wants new company slides. You can create them, right? You're laughing, I was crying.
So how do you use PowerShell to automate PowerPoint? I'm just trying to figure that one out.
Not.
Okay, next. So, okay, that's pretty good. Anyone have a better one?
I can talk to just in general. What I see is that in the industry now, PowerShell, just like DevOps, is kind of the key word. Everybody wants the DevOps, or we need PowerShell skills. What some recruiters don't realize is they put the keyword out there on their job description. Like, we want a Linux guy with to know how to write PowerShell scripts, or we want, like, the job is completely different than what an actual PowerShell developer, somebody good with PowerShell would need. So one piece of advice I would give to recruiters or anybody that's trying to hire for a job is, do some research ahead of time instead of just saying I want a construction worker with PowerShell skills just because they think that it's the new thing, and they'll get better talent that way.
Let me chime in.
Yeah, Sarah, you've been a little bit quiet. Get in here. I know you've got some fun stories.
So I have a story for this one. So, I was at a user group, and we had a recruiter who approached me. He knew who I was and said, "Hey, I have this job listing. Can you take a look at it, and can you recommend anybody for it?" And it was for a developer position, and they wanted somebody with SQL access. But they actually spelled it SEQUEL. So I looked at the listing, and I'm like, wait, I'm not seeing this. Please tell me I'm not seeing this. And I had to maintain a straight face, and I'm like, I think you mean SQL. So as a recruiter or a hiring manager, whoever is doing this listing, know the technologies that you're looking for. Please spell them out according to the industry. Otherwise, if you can't get the technology right, you're going to look bad.
Or let your IT guy review it, please.
Oh, yeah, let the IT guy review it.
Yeah, at least have someone in your company who understands a little bit about the technology. Look at the terminology you'll be using. Otherwise, you'll end up on this show getting made fun of. Jeremy, Jeremy, you got one for us?
I don't think I do, actually.
You've had all the best recruiters. I got it. June or Steven?
So I think a good question a recruiter asked me is like, what's your ideal day on the job? What's the most fun you've ever had at work? And for me, like when I'm on a keyboard when I'm scripting, that's fun. I can kind of say that gives them an idea of what I'd want to do. So I thought that was actually a really good question. Like, what's your dream job? Or not like what do you expect the job to look like, but what's your dream day on the job? That was actually a good question I got.
I like that. And June, you want to give us one?
No, I really can't think of anything for a recruiter, but in my short time interviewing, I had one code test that I thought was particularly good. I've given code tests for years, and I'd taken them for years in all different languages, and I'd never had one like this. I won't say which company it was, but I was given a code test that was actually funny. It was an API that found a needle in a haystack. And I needed to write some, as part of the code test, I needed to interpret the API and write a description of it. Like I'd write a page of help. And I actually played off of the metaphor and wrote the instruction as finding a needle in a haystack. And I realized that as someone who gave code tests, I never gave one that was amusing or, playful. And I don't think I'll ever give a very boring one again. That really taught me a lesson, both about being a potential employee and being the employer. So,
just because it could change your life doesn't mean it doesn't have to be fun.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Lou, I'm going to give you the last one. Now, I know you were actually involved with hiring several times. Do you actually do any interviews?
Absolutely, yeah, all the time.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. What was the most brilliant question you have ever asked in an interview?
Oh, geez.
No pressure.
I have to think about that. I'll ask you a go-to question, which I probably can never use again. Now that I'm going to tell you, but I use what we call the elevator design question. So being able to design an elevator system in a building and why Amazon does it wrong in their buildings. So
that's a trick question. Wait a minute. Wait, you can't say that.
They actually pick the floor before you get on the elevator, and so yeah, so interesting. So, but anyways, so that's one of the questions, and that's the question I asked: does Amazon do it wrong, or do all the other elevators in the world do it right? So I guess that they have to explain why they feel like that one does the wrong and one does it right. So there's that question, and then there's also another question I use is if explain your life as if it was recursive.
A tough one.
So yeah, so that's a tough one.
Yeah. I really like that. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna use that when I'm interviewing for the priesthood. See if people get it.
With the elevator question, is the answer more important or the way of thinking?
It's always the way of thinking.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
We've been speaking with Lou Maresca in a room full of literally the best, the cream of the crop MVPs, Microsoft MVPs. That includes Sarah Dukevich, Adam Bertram, Jeremy Clark, June Blender, Stephen Owen, and Jeff Wouters, who I'm calling Woot, because Wooters just sounds awesome. We will be back. Now Lou is actually going to take them to task. He's going to get really sort of nuts and bolts with them because in a way that I can't, because he's actually in a room with them. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a break to thank the second sponsor of this episode of Coding 101. And it's one of my favorites. It's the source for knowledge on the internet, lynda.com. Now, if you want to learn a new skill, let's say you want to pick up a new hobby, or you want to pad your resume for your next job, or maybe you just need a reference for knowledge that you've had and have forgotten, lynda.com is the place to go. Now, Lynda is for the problem solvers. It's for the curious, for the people who want to make things happen. Maybe you want to learn how to develop an app, or take better photos, or sharpen your Excel skills. Whatever it might be, lynda.com has everything you need to feed your curious mind. Right now they've added First Look in C# 6.0, database fundamentals, storage, the foundations of programming, databases up and running with PHP MyAdmin, and creating a game environment in Blender and Unity. Now, whether you're an experienced coder looking to learn something new, or you want to develop a game, an app, or give your website a facelift, lynda.com has something for every level of proficiency. With a lynda.com membership, you can watch and learn from top experts who are passionate about teaching. You can stream thousands of video courses on demand and learn on your own schedule. You get to learn on your own pace, which I find probably the most important thing about any online repository of knowledge. If they demand that you learn the way that they teach, you're just not going to hold on to the information. But if they give you things like course transcripts, so you can jump specifically to the video that has the answer to the question that's been bugging you for the last week. If they have something like a playlist, so you can share with your friends and turn learning into a group experience. If they give you the ability to download to your iOS and your Android devices, see it on your Mac, your PC, your laptop, or your desktop, that's when you learn. That's when learning becomes second nature. Now, we want you to try lynda.com because we think that you're going to find it as useful as we do here at the Twit Brick House. Your lynda.com membership gives you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one low flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/C101 and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com, lynda.com/C101. And we thank lynda.com for their support of Coding 101. Now, Lou Maresca, we've had fun and games here, but you're going to turn up the heat now and give our MVPs a bit more of a trial on the information they're giving to the Coding 101 audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think one of the questions I would like to kind of throw around the room is, it's actually, maybe I shouldn't be asking it, but the question would be, does Microsoft ever not listen to you?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So I think that that one of the parts that we can't see as MVPs is into the team and their resources and their scheduling. And they really do have to triage and set priorities. And sometimes it's very hard being on the product team and looking outside. There's the sort of squeaky wheel problem. So you hear from one MVP or two MVPs, and you begin to think that your whole consumer base is composed of MVPs. But the people on the product team really need to think of a much wider audience of people of different skill ranges from different places with different priority sets. So while I might be, very frustrated with a particular bug because it's in an area that prevents me from proceeding, they need to look at, hundreds of thousands of people who use this product and prioritize correctly. Right. So, sometimes I think it looks from the outside as though they're not listening, but sometimes they're listening, they completely understand, and they need to establish other priorities because they have a very large business.
Absolutely.
And maybe a good time to recommend connect.microsoft.com.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the Connect program, I can speak to a little bit of that. The PowerShell team actually uses the Connect app and the Connect feedback really seriously. I've been in meetings where they've gone through, when they do each revision of PowerShell, they would get all of the Connect bugs and feature descriptions, and they would sort them in descending order of number of votes. And when we'd have our meetings, they would say something like, well, this is very important. And the development team would say, no, that's too hard to do. And they'd say, it has 50 votes. We're doing it.
Hold on, back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Vote. And it's important for people to participate.
For the folks playing along at home, what is the Connect Microsoft website?
It's connect.microsoft.com, and the PowerShell one is /PowerShell.
And what
Connect,
this is just a resource for everybody.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're talking directly to the product team. There you go. And you can click on a bug and give feedback. But before you do that, it's very important to click vote. Click the vote button on the right and search for the item that you might be interested in because it's counted by the number of votes. Yeah, you can see that the most voted item is mine.
But you take no pride in that.
Yeah, no, not at all. But it's really important because if the votes if you have two issues that are very similar, or if people don't search before they vote and they just enter their pet peeve, then you're splitting the votes among a number of items that are really similar.
June, I should mention that right now we have a chat room. We have a chat room that runs 24 hours a day here on Twitch TV. And Dallas in the chat room is obviously a fan of yours and says he hopes to see you down at your SIG in the not too distant future. So, you're a celebrity here on the Twitch TV network.
Who knew?
Yeah. Any other tips that you'd like to offer people who want to get into this? Because I mean, this is fun. I'm really enjoying myself. I could go on for another hour. In fact, the original plan was for me to come down there. I would love to be part of that gathering of the minds. But there are going to be people at home who watch this episode and they're going to say, well, that may be nice. And those people obviously know what they're doing because they're contributing to the community. But I'm just getting started and I have no idea what to do. I see this Connect website. I don't understand what they're talking about. If someone wanted to start, where should they start?
So I think one of the biggest things is anytime you want to get involved in a product or in a technology is like, I think it was Stephen was said it is, or maybe it was in Jeremy. He said, I like to actually help people. And I think what most people who share information usually get noticed. So if you're out, like, let's say even on Twitter, or if you're on a blog, start looking to a technology that you enjoy using, whether it's C# or building a mobile app, and just start writing about it. Just start kind of teaching other people, people that you don't even know, but just kind of teaching yourself publicly, what you're doing and what you're learning and what you want to learn, and people actually pick up on that. And I think that's kind of the key. That's the first thing to start with. Obviously, if you're doing a Microsoft technology, then that might get noticed by Microsoft itself, which is a lot of these MVPs do that. Another thing too is, be active on social networking and make sure that you're active and you're also potentially helping people with things that you've experienced. So that also helps get you noticed as well. And of course, be active on connect.com, connect.microsoft.com. You can put your own questions in there, show Microsoft you have insight into the technology. And there's also a lot of user voice, very similar to connect.microsoft.com. User voice has different products from Microsoft you can go on there and vote about. So, just get involved and get yourself out there and don't be afraid to do so. And that's really how you're going to get noticed and how you're going to get your foot in the door.
Don't be afraid about feedback.
That's right.
Oh, so yeah, tell me about that. That can actually be very daunting. That person who thinks they have an insight, but they're worried about the other kids in the class just calling him an idiot. Does that happen?
What was the question? The audio was a little bit low.
So I'm saying, like, for example, you're saying that you should get your foot in the door by being active, getting in the community. But there's going to be people who say, I'm not at that level yet. I can't offer any insight. And if I do, I'm afraid that people are going to make fun of me.
From my experience, there will always be people making fun of you.
Okay.
Somebody, just because they're having a laugh, sometimes because they think that putting you down makes them feel higher or whatever. Just read it and yeah, it's their loss to being like that. So
And there'll also be always people who be smarter than you, but there's
yeah.
always going to be people that know less than you. It's your job to teach the ones in this, not really worry about the ones that think they know more.
Yeah, and I think that that's less of a risk in the PowerShell communities than in some other communities, because there's a culture that goes with every language.
Yeah.
And I think that the culture that's developed around PowerShell is really very cooperative.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in something and you blog about it, or, answer a question about it, or even offer, some ideas, or say that you're excited about it, people will join in and support you. Sure. I think in this community, far more likely than to denigrate you. And I think that's just part of, working with PowerShell.
When I started working with PowerShell, there weren't really good resources yet for learning. These days, there are a whole bunch of them. And just start fiddling around with it. And based on what you experience, share that knowledge. Right. Then anybody, sure, they can challenge you on that knowledge. But then you have got the hands-on experience to back it up.
Right. And you learn from the challenge.
Correct.
Yeah. One of the people, I think, is also a great thing. So one of my favorite things to do is to grab a piece of code that someone else has and write a blog explaining how they did it.
That's right.
And so part of that is my experience of learning how they did it and discussing it with them, and then explaining it to others. So that's a really rewarding thing to do, and it gives you lots of opportunities to learn.
One of the things that I've heard that I was actually very moved by was we had a programmer show up to, at Black Hat this year. And he was saying one of the greatest things that ever happened to him as a young programmer was he found a mentor. He found someone who he very much respected, whose work he was very into. He had copied a lot of his code, who was willing to speak with him. And he thought it was the greatest thing ever, because now it gave him the confidence. If this person was willing to listen to him and answer his questions, that he must have something there. Have any of you had a mentor, or do any of you mentor noobs right now?
I haven't had a mentor myself when I look at PowerShell, but I also speak and present. And trust me, I have stage fright. And it took me 3.5 years to get it a little bit under control. And I had a mentor for that. But I also mentor a few guys in PowerShell these days. So sure, it's a lot of collaboration about newbies, oldies, and sometimes a newbie comes along and he does it so simplistic. Yes. That I'm like, seriously, that's possible?
Right.
The surprise. We're running out of time here, so I want to give everyone a last chance. This is the time for you to be the guru. What are your last nuggets of knowledge, of wisdom that you want to give to the audience? And what are the things that you believe they should be looking at as we move into 2016?
Well, my biggest thing is talk to other developers. Join a local user group. Getting outside of whatever environment you're in is huge for expanding your world. It's something that I only started doing like 5 years ago. And I think about, if I'd started doing that 10 years earlier, where would I be now? So you know what? Get out of your comfort zone, go meet some other developers, find people who are using technologies you're not using, and start tapping to them for knowledge. It's amazing.
Start with one product or one language, but don't be limited by that. So expand gradually.
Yeah. Sarah, get in there.
I'm getting in there. So my advice is, if you're going to these events and then you go on Twitter and you start following more people, when you come back to the events, come say hi to us. Because there have been many people that I follow online that I see at a conference and they're like, oh, there's Sudoku. They whisper it. And I'm like, cut it out, guys. I put my pants on one leg at a time like the rest of you. Most of us speakers and conference organizers, that's what we do. But we're in community engagement for a reason. We like to engage with the community. So come say hi to us. Say, hey, you know what? I read your blog and you wrote this article that really engaged me. Talk to us, because if you tell us who you are, we're going to remember that a lot more. And we want to engage with the community. Don't be afraid of us. We just talk a lot more.
Adam, what about you? Do you put your pants on the same way?
Well, when I do put on my pants, I mean,
I'm not wearing pants.
Home a whole lot.
No, I mean it's the same thing. This whole experience is fairly new to me. I was an IT pro for 17 years. I did not, like I said in the previous interview, I was I called it a leash, but I was the guy that would just go online, get whatever I wanted done. I didn't care about sharing it. I didn't really even think about sharing it. I would just grab something I want, thanks, and just kind of move on that job. It wasn't until that I decided to start, sharing more and getting more involved that my world just expand. This is my first MVP summit, and I've told myself many times this is surreal. I'm in the midst of the all the product teams and all the people that I've idolized for a long time myself. So I was an IT pro for a long time, just doing my job. But it wasn't until recently that it was just my world just got so much bigger. Just like what Jeremy was saying, get out, share your knowledge, and really, once you do, you really can expand your world by so much. You have no idea what's capable out there, and no idea what other opportunities you may run into.
Thank you. June, Stephen, who wants to go first?
So I think I'm gonna piggyback right off what Adam said. I think for me, everything really changed when I decided that today's the day I'm gonna start sharing. And you don't have to be an expert. No one starts an expert. You just have to start with a little bit of passion. And if you've learned even one basic thing, there's probably a dozen people out there just clicking next, and hoping that it works this time. So if you help that one person, that's just kind of starting you on that path to learning and sharing, and it just only takes you up from there, I think.
And we have to end with June, because we have already established that, we've figured out she is actually the one who approves MVPs. So you've now got the inside track. June?
No, not quite. But, I think, if I could give, any advice, it would be never be afraid of the technology. Just get in there and try it. Read what other people have written, look it up, but get in there and try it for yourself, because I think that there's just cutting and pasting will get you just so far. But if you don't begin to create things yourself and start with a blank screen and begin to fill it in and build something that you like, you're going to spend a lot of time cutting and pasting. So get in there. Don't be afraid of the technology, and absolutely don't be afraid to ask questions, because we were all beginners, and there are lots of people out there who are happy to help.
Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so very much. This has been so much fun. I wish we had more time. I do want to thank everyone who's there. So, of course, go back to the wide shot. Sarah Dukevich, you're going to see her again. She's coming back to give us more PowerShell on Coding 101. Adam Bertram, he's also coming back. We're inviting him to come back and help us learn the PowerShell mojo, the secrets. Jeremy Clark, .NET MVP. And then we've got, of course, Jeff the Wouters. How can we not have the Wouters in here? PowerShell MVP. And on the other side of the table, we've got June Blender and Stephen Owen. Thank you for taking time out of your MVP Summit to come in and speak with our audience. Hopefully, they're inspired to pick up, to just get in there. And maybe you've got a couple of future MVPs listening to you right now.
Awesome.
Thank you. Lou, I can't thank you enough. I know this was a lot of work to put together. Thank you for setting up the room. Thank you for getting these people together. Thank you for just being Lou. Could you please, we're going to make sure that everyone's links end up in our show notes. So if you could make sure that every link, every Twitter address that they want is going to end up in the doc, so it gets put into our show notes. I thank you for that. But also, where can people find you when you're not gathering together the cream of the MVP crop?
Actually, I didn't do any of that work. Sarah and Adam were the ones that pulled all the people in, so I do appreciate. Thank you for the help for that.
We can give Lou the credit.
Yeah, sure. I got the room and set all the equipment up, so there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, so you can always find me at LouMM on Twitter. So LOUMM, and then of course all my work that I do here at Microsoft can be found at crm.dynamics.com. So check that out.
Thank you again so very much for being with us. This hopefully we're going to do more like this. I like bringing in live episodes, live events. I know Twit TV is trying to get out there, so this may be the start of a beautiful MVP relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, I know at home this is going to be strange, but if we could give a round of applause to all of our panelists, our MVPs, spending time with us. Now, normally this is the time where we do our out. We tell you where you can find us, which is going to be every 2:30 p.m. Pacific time on Mondays, live.twit.tv. We tell you where you could go to our chat room at irc.twit.tv and participate with us in real time. We also tell you that you could find me on Twitter at PadreSJ, but we're not going to do any of that. Instead, what we're going to do, Lou, is we're going to end the show as we do each and every single week which is how? That's you, Lou. Wow, that's actually better than we've ever done it on this show.